Hello, and welcome to the Evolution Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferraro, with my co-host, Dave Sanders. We got a special pod coming to you this week. I'm actually just going to kick it to Dave, let him get it started.
Yeah, so we have my friend Harry from West Virginia on, big Mets, Jets, Nets, Devils fan. Wanted to have him on just to talk a little bit about being a Mets, Jets, and Nets fan and how hard that's been for him, and how he stuck with it, though, and he hasn't become a bandwagon fan, jumping all over the place. So, Harry, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me, guys. I've been listening to you guys recently, and you guys are killing it, doing a great job.
Thanks, man. Happy to have you on.
Thank you.
I guess let's start with the Mets. I think that's what you're most fired up about.
That is indeed.
So give us your 30 seconds on the Mets. Just where do they stand right now?
Right now, to be honest, I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
Okay.
Honestly, I just wish they would have done a little bit more and gone all in like they should, like most teams with good ownerships do. But unfortunately, the Mets have the Wilpons as the owners. So for having them as the owners, this team is pretty good. I still really wish we would have signed that one big bat. I thought Manny Machado was perfect for the Mets. Third baseman, big righty. The Mets have a great, good supporting hitters all around the team, all solid players. I think the best starting pitching staff in baseball, and one of the top, I would say top 5 bullpens in baseball. So I just think if they just would have gotten that big bat, they honestly could have been World Series contenders. I'm still optimistic, though. I do think they could be a playoff team, and if things are going well, they do tend to like to add a player right before the trading deadline or any time in the year, as long as things are going well. But overall, I'd say I'm optimistic, but again, frustrated at the same time, just because we have the Wilpons as our owners, and what they should be doing right now is signing that one big bat.
Yeah, I got you. That pitching staff, you're right, is pretty solid when you've got Syndergaard, DeGrom. What's the other guy's name?
Zach Wheeler.
Zach Wheeler.
So there's apparently it's the best one in baseball. We should be able to rattle them all off.
That's true. And their bullpen, they got Edwin Diaz, so I can definitely see that. Yeah, I mean, with this staff, it is kind of disappointing that they've only had, I guess, 2 playoff appearances over the last couple of years.
Yeah. It's very frustrating, and they really did hit the lottery with the pitching staff, too. DeGrom wasn't even supposed to be the ace. And, yeah, he was a late-round pick who just shocked everyone, became Rookie of the Year. He's incredible. He's by far my favorite player on the Mets. And then Syndergaard, he's phenomenal. We knew when we were getting him. He wasn't the main guy in the trade, but when we got him, we knew like he was going to be the real deal. And Wheeler was supposed to have the most upside out of all the guys. And, then Matt, if he could ever stay healthy, as a solid number 4. And number 5 hole, I'm not too thrilled having Jason Vargas there. I personally would love for them to go sign Gio Gonzalez. I think that's the perfect number 5 guy. But again, the Wilpons, not like to spend money.
Yeah.
That's the best we could hope for, I guess.
Yeah, I'm seeing a theme here.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess looking at the NL East, it's really stacking up as 4 solid teams with just everybody beating up on the Marlins. I guess, Drew, what's your take on the division?
I think it's one of the stronger ones in baseball. You take a look at the Braves. They've done it from the young guys. They've got Acuna, Albies, a bunch of young guys to kind of bolster them up. I think the Nats take a step back. Obviously, losing Harper is going to be an issue, but they do have some ridiculously good prospects like Robles coming up. Mets made some moves. So, they added Cano, Diaz, and a couple of those trades. They signed Wilson Ramos, who's above average, Lowry. Mm-hmm. So they made some moves. I think it's the Phillies division, if you want my personal answer. If I had to pick it, I think we'd go Phillies, Braves, Mets. Mets and Nats are pretty close, and obviously Miami is just terrible.
Yeah, what would you put there? I guess, Harry, how many wins do you think the Marlins could get this year with that kind of a division around them?
Not many. If I had to guess, I would say probably somewhere in the low 70s, maybe high 60s. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. 100 losses is well in play.
Oh, yeah. So Bleacher Report has them, and this was in early February when the article came out, at 55 and 107.
Okay.
Now, before Harper got signed and all the other moves.
Wow.
Yeah, not having JT there anymore. They're one bat. Yeah, they're going to be pretty terrible.
Yeah. I guess if we transition over to the NBA, Nets fandom, Nets moved from Jersey to Brooklyn. Prokhorov came in. That was pretty exciting for a little while.
That,
and you
that
had
was.
right?
The best part of the Mikhail Prokhorov era was before everything started, when his press conference.
Yeah.
That.
The videos of him like jet skiing, you're like, oh, this guy's cool.
Yeah, we thought he's just going to be spending money like nonstop. Like, he's promised everyone he's going to win a championship within the first 5 years. Otherwise, he was going to have to get married. Yeah, he was making all these promises. And when he bought the team, yeah, we had such high expectations. But then things seemed to have been going well. But then he hired probably the worst GM in sports history, Billy King. That was pretty much the downfall. And yeah, from there, it's been a lot of misery. But I would say I do think we are going the right direction now. Getting out of the terrible years these past few years. I do think we are in good shape though with Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson. I am hopeful and I am excited going forward.
Yeah, I like what they've done recently. I know Drew and I know Billy King's work very well. And with the Sixers, he tried to max everybody or give long-term contracts to the supporting cast of Iverson, which really was just a cast of role players.
Yep.
And then when he did the Garnett Pierce deal, that just crushed him for such a long time. But I would say moving forward, I do like what they've made. They've been making these moves to acquire draft picks, whether it's been taking on salaries or not. Mm-hmm. I guess, Drew, what's your outlook for the Nets going forward?
I mean, it's getting better, but getting better from the basement's not really that hard. I think really you've seen a lot where what it takes is you have to get your stars. You got to get somebody that can really kind of carry your team. In this day and age in the NBA, you need 2 or 3. So not quite there. I like the Russell deal they made. I think that's really paying off well for them.
I love that move.
Yeah, that was a really good one. You know, if you got some decent younger guys, they can kind of work around. A couple guys I really like, you know. Shabazz Pierce, just my boy. He always has been. He's not really,
okay.
He's not that great, but he's my boy. I just backing up. Do we really think Billy Little's the worst GM in all of sports?
Billy King?
Billy King. Sorry, I didn't mean well.
It's like I honestly, I know he has a lot of competition, but just for my sports fandom, well, I would say second out of my sports fandom. The worst one of all time still is John Idzik. Those 2 years with the Jets, he was just that bad, and he set them back so far. But Billy King's a close second, though. At the time, I didn't think it was the worst move making that trade. But if you're going to make that trade, you got to go all in with it. It's like as soon as you make that trade, he signs Jason Kidd as the head coach, first-time head coach. That made no sense. If you're going to have all those experienced guys, blend them in together, you have to have someone who's coached before. Then what really frustrated me is after giving up all those assets, they pretty much abandoned ship right away the next season. After spending all of that money, they didn't want to re-sign Paul Pierce for, yes, at the time, $15 million was not worth it. But by already committing like they did, they should have at least gone for it for one more year. And then Danny Ainge just seriously outsmarted him, and that was probably one of the best deals of all time for an NBA franchise to get all of those draft picks. So at the time, I know a lot of the pressure came because of Mikhail Prokhorov wanting to win right away. But yeah, my biggest thing was it's not essentially not as much essentially giving up what they did. It's just not going at it full force. I just think they could have just done some things a lot better and a lot smarter. But yeah, overall, looking back, it's just one of the worst trades of all time. And the trade that people actually, in my opinion, was even worse. Yes, looking back now, this trade is worse. But right before that, giving up the 10th overall pick for an old Gerald Wallace, that trade gets lost in the fold all the time because everyone just likes to talk about the trade for KG and Pierce. But that one at the time at least made sense. At the time when they gave away that pick for Gerald Wallace, we all knew, I just knew, how could you do that? That's just idiocracy. That is just so stupid to give up a draft pick, which ultimately turned into Damian Lillard. So that was the first thing. And looking back, yes, the trade is horrible, but there were plenty of worse moves before that were horrible that led to that move. the Joe Johnson trade. I understand getting Joe Johnson. They wanted a semi superstar, but then they gave up draft picks for that. Darren Williams, at the time, they had to do that. I still, looking back, like he wasn't wrong for doing that, but Darren Williams honestly killed the Nets too. As soon as he signed with the Nets, he started eating burgers and donuts and didn't really care about basketball. Like all he really cared about was he got his money, and that was it. He was never the player he was in Utah. So yeah, I mean, when he made that trade for KG Pierce and I think it was Jason Terry at the time, didn't hate it at the time because where the Nets were, they were one of the better teams of the East. So it made sense. But the worst thing with the Billy King era, I think personally, was the things he did beforehand leading up to that.
Yeah, those are all good points. I think the biggest thing with King was just his lack of negotiation skills or just poor negotiation skills because the Nets were, for a while, they're really in the contention in the East, and he probably didn't think those picks would matter or the pick swaps would be that effective. But letting those go and not having protections on the draft picks.
At least the number one, like overall protection. Like how
exactly? How does that happen?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Nets right now are 36 and 36, up 2.5 with like 9 to play. Do they make the playoffs?
I think they will.
Yeah,
I do.
I think they probably first round exit, but they'll make it and then get.
I mean, honestly, I don't have too much expectations, but they're already 1 year ahead of schedule. I think right now it would be Sixers Nets first round, which obviously seeing the Sixers firsthand, I honestly think the Sixers are going to win the East, in my opinion. I just think they have by far the best starting lineup in the East. I think Milwaukee's going to have a tough time just because after Giannis, having Chris Middleton as your second best player is not ideal. I do like Toronto, but just something just doesn't feel right there with Toronto, with Kawhi. Like, I feel like he still is not going to be re-signing there. So I don't know. Just as good as they've been this year, I don't fully believe in them. And then the Celtics, who knows with the Celtics, but yeah, they're not looking too great either. So I honestly think if I had to put my money on any team, it would be the Sixers. So as being a Nets fan, that's probably the one team I don't want to face in the first round, but it will be fun. Like living here in Philly, hoping to at least go to one of the games if that's the matchup. So yeah, it would be a fun series. But yeah, I do think the Sixers are going to win. So if that's the matchup right now, not too thrilled about it.
Right now, actually, you're matched up on Toronto. So you'd pull Toronto, you're 7 seed, Toronto's a 2 seed.
Okay.
Based on where it's at. Sixers would pull Detroit, Milwaukee pulls Miami, that's a walk. Okay. And then the Pacers and Boston would be the 4 or 5 seed.
Okay.
We've talked about this.
I honestly would feel a little better about going against Toronto than it would the Sixers, to be honest. I really would. I honestly think I don't think the Nets would win the series, but I would not be shocked if the Nets won 2 games in that series. I honestly think they can. They have nothing to lose. A team going in with nothing to lose is always a dangerous team.
Yeah, I think they'll give somebody a hard series. Even Philly. Like I believe in the Sixers like you do too, but I think they're very volatile, that their highs are very high, but their lows could be very low. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't look too – I want Miami of all those teams as a Sixers fan, but I don't think they can get to that spot.
How are they even in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Just the bottom half of the East is pretty weak. I mean, Miami right now is 33 and 36. They got 13 to play, so it's still possible. Just kind of as I'm looking at the quick projected matchup, if you look at Toronto and Brooklyn, Raptors lead the series 2-1. Brooklyn pulled a 1-point win, lost by about 15, and then had a 2-point loss recently in February. So it'd be an interesting matchup. I think, like I said, when you kind of hit the playoffs, it's about getting hot. It's about doing the right thing. It's about staying healthy.
Yep.
One key injury, like you said, if something happens to G in Milwaukee, they're obviously toast.
Yep.
So,
yeah, for sure. So I guess the next sport to hit on, Jets fandom. So you have season tickets for the Jets. You go all the time.
It just goes from worst to worst or it's a lifetime of misery.
It's just going downhill. Like the Mets, all right, cool. They should do all right. They can do something. All right.
Yeah, no,
Nets are going to make the playoffs.
What's that?
You went from the New York Mets. So you're like, oh, hey, best rotation in baseball. You move down to Brooklyn and at least make the playoffs. And now we're on the New York Jets.
Yep.
Woof.
Hey, but you know what, though? I will say this. As miserable of a sports fan as I am and how horrible it's been, I do think all of my teams are pointing in the right direction, to be completely honest. Yeah, so with the Jets, the last couple of years have been miserable. But honestly, the best thing that has happened to the Jets in years is honestly getting rid of Todd Bowles. Getting Sam Darnold, that is tied for the first, obviously. I do think he is the real deal, and I am so excited to have him as my quarterback. But I don't think it's talked about enough how terrible of a coach Todd Bowles truly was. If you watch, it's hard for a lot of other people don't understand a lot of times because if they don't watch all the games and just looking at it from an outside perspective, like, oh, the first year they were 10-6, and the second year and not horrible, and the third year, oh, they won more than they should have. No, if you watch them on a day-to-day basis, he was just the worst coach I've seen since Richie Kotite. And so, yeah, getting rid of Todd Bowles first is the thing I am most excited about. And I do think the Jets are going in the right direction. At first I was a little hesitant, but I do like the Adam Gase hire. The Jets could potentially have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're not done yet this offseason. I love the C.J. Mosley signing. Love the Barr signing for the one day until he changed his mind.
Yeah, we had one of those with Frank Gore a couple years ago.
Yeah,
so
who had the better career, Anthony Barr in New York or Frank Gore as part of the Eagles?
It's a toss-up. It really is. Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those sports debates we'll be talking about for years to come.
We can talk about Darnold a little bit.
Yeah.
I know I liked him a lot coming out of school. I think there were a lot of positive signs last year. And now getting him with Gase, who I'd like to see what he can do with a quarterback that's not Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
And he has some weapons now. Having Bell in the backfield just should provide a threat. And Bell's ability in the passing game, I think, can just be such a game changer for a young quarterback.
Yep.
I guess, Drew, coming out of school, what did you think of Sam Darnold?
I was quite high on Darnold. I'd have to go back and look and kind of go back through where we were on the rankings, but I liked a lot of Sam. I was really high on him, especially in the preseason. I saw a lot of growth. I saw a lot of being able to make multiple reads, be able to go that way. So I think the future's bright there. We've moved on from the butt fumble, which is probably the highlight of Jet fandom there for a bit. He did actually take him pretty good to start his career, went all downhill from there. But
yep.
I think Darnold should be good. Like you said, I think you're right, Dave, with Bell coming in. That'll give him a nice outlet. Somebody on the backfield can make some work. But it's all going to be on Gase. I think this will be whether Gase is actually the guy everybody thinks he is or if he's just that flash in the pan. He looked real good with Alshon and, having that kind of offense.
Yep. I agree. I think I do like a couple things about him. I do like how he has that experience already. Coaches, I know a lot of times when they go to this is pretty much it for him. So he knows the pressure's on him. He has to win now. Rumor has it, what I've heard is that he kind of forced his way out of Miami and that they would have kept him, but he pretty much almost forced the owner to get rid of him. He didn't really have the talent there. And if you watch the games, the 6 Jet games that he coached against them, you could tell he's a smart coach. Dolphin fans that I know do say he's a very good in-game coach, unlike Todd Bowles. I thought, honestly, this past year, the Jets had more talent than Miami did overall. And I do think Gase going to about 500 there is not bad for the amount of talent that he has. So I'm optimistic. Obviously, you don't like hearing that all the players hated him and pretty much melding off to the owner and not being a winner there. That stuff does scare you. But honestly, pretty much a dead corpse is better than Todd Bowles. He honestly, I know people don't understand it who don't watch the Jets every weekend, but he did things that made them worse. Take, for instance, a game this year. I think it was against Miami. The center had a broken finger. He couldn't hike the ball. 99.9% would sub the center out, but Todd Bowles doesn't like to make adjustments, and he's against making changes. So he leaves him in there, and the center obviously fumbles the ball multiple times. I know Todd Bowles is a nice guy. And he's a very good defensive coordinator, but he honestly was that bad as an NFL head coach. And everyone loves to give him credit for the first year going 10-6. That was one of the things that pisses me off the most, because that first year was not a success. If it would have been a success if they would have beaten Buffalo the last game of the season to make the playoffs. All they needed to do, they beat New England. They beat the Giants. All they needed to do was beat a Buffalo team who was completely decimated with injuries, not making the playoffs. I think at the time they had 6 wins or 7 wins, nothing to play for, and the Jets come in there, lay an egg. And Todd Bowles does what Todd Bowles does, doesn't make adjustments. So, yeah, everyone likes to talk about the first year being such a successful year for the Todd Bowles era, going 10-6. But looking back, it was not impressive. They had a very easy schedule that year because they were in last place the year before, so they got to play a lot of the last place teams in other divisions. That year, the NFC East was not a good division, so the Jets pretty much won most of the games that they should have won. They had a good offseason. They got Revis back when he was still somewhat close to Revis. They got Cromartie. They got James Carpenter. They had a good team that year. Ryan Fitzpatrick played out of his mind. Jets should have made the playoffs that year, but in my opinion, Todd Bowles was one of the main reasons they didn't make the playoffs. Then the second year comes. Jets underperformed completely. They lost the locker room by week 3. Sheldon Richardson and Brandon Marshall fighting with each other. So that was I think Todd Bowles should have been gone after that year. But again, Jets wanted to keep him. So the next year, and then the Jets obviously win more than everyone thought they would. So outsiders looking in like, oh, Todd Bowles is a good coach. How did he get the Jets to 5 wins? Which that probably was the highlight of his coaching career there, to be completely honest. Like, that's probably the most impressive thing he did. But when your highlight is outperforming expectations and winning 5 games, that just shows how crappy of a coach he really is. So, yes, I do have my hesitations about Adam Gase, but I am excited that we actually have someone who actually looks like he'll care, at least.
All good points. 2 takeaways from that. 1, I wish this was a video podcast because you are passionate about Todd Bowles.
Yes.
Number two, I like what you said about young coaches and learning from their first job. So talking about Gase, he showed some positive signs in Miami. Tannehill, did take some positive steps there. Even Osweiler was okay in limited time. I think having his first job and so quickly moving on to the next one, he can probably take some things from Miami that he would have done differently, especially with exiting some of the unhappy players, like pushing Jay Ajayi out. Trying to send that message that way. Maybe he'll learn that wasn't necessarily the right way to go about it.
Yep.
And having another opportunity in the same division hopefully gives him a chance to make some better decisions going forward.
Yep. Definitely.
I mean, the whole thing breaks down to is at this point somebody has to beat New England. So you've got to figure you have to finish. If you're going to win the division, you're going to have to win a lot of games. Otherwise, you're playing the wild card. Figure it just gets tough because you figure the Raiders got a lot better. They're making a lot of great moves.
Yeah.
John Gruden's a quiet genius out there. So you figure the West has gotten a little bit better. You take a look at with the North. They've gotten a lot better because you figure Pittsburgh's still pretty good. The Browns are supposed to be really good.
Yep.
So even in the South, you look at Houston and Indianapolis. Like it's a tough road to get to the playoffs.
It is. It really is. And it's brutal having the Patriots in the division every year too. So yeah, going into the season, as you just said, Andy, pretty much going in knowing that your main chance is winning the wild card and pretty much have no chance at the division. It sucks. It's really frustrating. But I will say this, the Patriots, I do think, are beatable. I know that's crazy to say, and obviously they just won a Super Bowl, so I sound even dumber right now saying this, but the Patriots, what they do, the biggest advantage that the Patriots have is they have 6 games against the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills every year. So basically, essentially, all they have to go is 500 the rest of the way, and they have a first-round bye every single year. This year, I know it sounds bitter, like trying to take away what they've done, because it's obviously incredible to run. Belichick and Brady are the best quarterback in the history of the NFL. But when you watch them, they're not unbeatable. They're really not. if the Jets sometime is going to fall down, and I know I just keep saying it, but that is such an advantage having against and how incompetent those three other franchises have been. That I honestly do feel is the biggest reason besides Belichick and Brady for the success of the Patriots. So the Patriots defense, I don't think is going to be as good as years past. They let obviously players on offense go. So at some point they are going to lose, but I know everyone says that at some point they're going to lose. But if Sam Darnold is as good as everyone thinks he's going to be, including myself, Jamal Adams is, in my opinion, he could legit be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate this year. Like, he is incredible. The Jets do have still cap room. They have good young talent. Beating New England in the near future, I still don't think the Jets are going to win the division this year. I still do think it's the Patriots. But within another year or two, if things keep going right, if Darnold keeps improving like he should, they could win the division eventually. It's going to happen at some point. And, the Jets just have to be smart. Maccagnan has to continue making smart moves. I am a Maccagnan fan. I do think we have the right GM in place. But, yeah, time will tell.
That's so important as you build this roster around that rookie contract. I personally love the Bell signing. It was pretty much almost the same money that Pittsburgh offered in their latest deal, just slightly more.
Yeah.
And to get him motivated to come in and prove people wrong prove that he was right to sit out. I just think that's such a smart move.
Yep.
Like you said, Brady has to decline at some point. Like, we keep thinking it's not going to happen, but it does eventually happen. Everybody falls off. Peyton Manning fell off.
Yep.
Once he hits that mark, we'll know it. But until then, I'll still bet on the Patriots, I guess.
I think that's a smart bet.
Yeah, you keep betting the Patriots till they tell you not to. They've been saying it's been the decline of Tom Brady for the last 4 years now. I know we talked on an earlier pod. We expected when the Patriots started out pretty poorly. This could be the end. There's talk of Gronk being done, and even he doesn't look nearly as good as he used to. But I think as long as you keep Darnold, he keeps getting better. Gase keeps improving. The defense is pretty solid. It would have been nice to add Anthony Barr, but such is life. We've all seen that one. So they're going in the right direction. I don't think it can get any worse. So we're going up. So it's always positives in New York.
Okay.
At least for the
Is there anything you'd like them to hit on in the draft specifically?
Obviously, as it looks right now, everyone's saying Kyler Murray is going number one. I still want to see it to believe it, because pretty much if they do that and it doesn't work out, the GM of the Cardinals pretty much signs his pink slip right there. So if he does go number one, we're going to get Bosa or Allen. So if you can get one of those two guys, you've got to be pumped about that.
Yeah.
If you're not going to get one of those two guys, I am completely open to trading back, getting back some of those second-round draft picks we traded to move up for the Darnold deal. I definitely would be open to that. I would even almost be open to that if we don't get Bosa. I do think Allen is the real deal. But if someone's going to offer you an extra first-round draft pick or a couple seconds, you've definitely got to explore it. I probably would rather take Allen and, of course, Bosa over doing that. But if you're not getting one of those two guys, I definitely think the best option would be to trade back and get some more picks, because the Jets still do have a lot of holes.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense given their spot in development right now. I guess, Drew, what are your takes on, of the young quarterbacks, where do you think Darnold stacks in there? Just to kind of wrap a bow on the Jets here.
Oh, wrap a bow on the Jets. If you're looking from, I guess, last year's class, obviously Baker has come out and proven he is the real deal.
Yep.
At least through what we've seen so far, and as we get into our RG19 preview, we can talk more Baker, where the Browns are. I'm not as high on Lamar as other people are, just because they relied on the defense. Now he's got to actually throw the ball. I can say it was a little bit of a gimmick, but he was really more of a game management and quarterback. Rosen, I'm still big on. I just think he got a raw deal in Arizona. So either he gets traded and it works out, or he's got Cliff Kingsbury and a high-powered offense, and I think that'll get so much better. I think that's what's going to happen, because I think Arizona trades back. So I really think Darnold's probably 2A, depending on what kind of happens with Rosen. Now, I guess the kicker would be, where would you stack him with the incoming? So where do you rank Darnold among Kyler Murray, Haskins, Greer, those kind of guys, Dave?
Yeah, so I'd have Darnold second if you included last year's class and this year's class behind Baker. Still like Rosen a bunch, but it's hard to put him ahead of any of those guys. Kyler Murray for me would be after the first four guys from last year. Still ahead of Lamar, but I think behind Allen, behind Rosen, behind Darnold and Baker. And then the other guys like Haskins and Greer probably a tier down below. I guess, Harry, where's your take on Darnold compared to some of those other guys?
I think you guys hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, I would say obviously Baker is number one. Can't deny that. Yeah, number two, I still would take him over Rosen, over Allen. I agree completely. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to be that great in the NFL. Just his size. Yeah, I just don't think he's going to be able to be that good. Haskins, I don't think is going to be that great. And as much as I love Will Greer, I personally don't think he's going to be that great of an NFL quarterback either. So yeah, I would probably take Darnold right now as number two. But I will still say this also. I do think he does even have more upside than Baker does too. Baker obviously was much better than he was last year. But if I still had to redraft that now, I still would take Darnold over Baker, just mainly because of the upside that he does have. Baker had a much better supporting cast last year than Darnold has. He is as great as he is. Like, there is some flaws with Baker. Obviously, Darnold has flaws too. But yeah, if I had to put my money on it, I would take Darnold just because seeing what he could do and just seeing a couple of those incredible plays that he would make last year. Yeah, I think he has all the potential in the world. And so, yeah, I know I probably sound dumb saying that, but I still would take Darnold going forward.
That's quite a hot take. I think that'll probably just about wrap us up. So I think on that bombshell of Harry is still in Darnold over Baker and everybody else.
Going forward, I'll take Darnold.
Going forward, all right.
Okay, so they're redrafting.
So far,
they're redrafting. He's
number
taking
one.
Darnold.
Before we get out of here, let's get a pick for the number of wins for the Mets and Jets this year. We'll go around the room on this.
Alrighty, so let's start with the Mets. I'm gonna say 88 for the Mets.
Okay.
Ooh, this guy's ballsy.
I'm going to say 84 myself. Again, like what they're doing, like the pitching staff. Wilson Ramos, as you mentioned, is an underrated pickup. He was really good in Philly last year, can really hit.
The only reason I say 88 is because if things are going well, they are going to add another bat, a big bat, during the season. That's just the Wilpons MO. As horrible as they are, they will add someone if things are going well.
And Shane Alonso can mash. I can't wait for that guy to play first base.
Yeah, they do have good. I think Conforto is going to finally have a monster year. The Conforto that he's supposed to be, and yeah, as long as the pitching holds up, I do think honestly, I know it sounds crazy saying it, but the Mets could be World Series contenders. Get that one big right-handed bat in there, I do honestly believe they could win a World Series, but we shall see.
I love Conforto. Andy knows that.
Yeah, you are a Conforto truther.
Yep. So. Every fantasy league, I always have to get Conforto. I'm a believer too.
Okay.
All right, Drew, what's your pick for number of wins?
I say 82. Okay. I think they're in the right direction. Like I said, when you're solely dependent upon right now, your starting pitching and that rotation has to come through.
Yeah.
One injury, even if it's for 2-3 weeks, will put a wrench in the whole plan. So you also talked about, the ownership spending money. I don't see them doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
Might make something. Like I said, they've made some tweaks to the deadline, so we might see a busier one. I just feel like that a lot of the teams that would have traded that are going to be out of it by the trade deadline have pretty much moved most of their players because there's kind of a tanking epidemic right now in baseball. So yeah. I'll put them at 82. I think with Philly getting better, Atlanta's still pretty good. Nationals are still pretty good. Like I said, there's 4 really good teams there in the East, so I think they're going to get cannibalized, and the lack of probably depth behind their starters is going to be an issue.
Yeah. If things do go wrong, I do have high hopes for Seth Lugo. I do think he's going to be the X factor for the Mets this year. He's not talked about a lot, but he does have a lot of talent. He has enough talent to by far be the Mets' 4th or 5th starter, probably 5th. I still do think Matz has the upside. but he can never stay healthy. I do think Lugo is the X factor, that he could come in, he could pitch a couple innings, kind of like the Ramiro Mendoza type player of the Yankees years ago. He has so much upside, and I know Gazelman also could be moved to the starting rotation, but yeah, Gio Gonzalez would be the perfect player for the Mets to add right now as number 5. I agree completely that the Mets could definitely use some additional starting pitching depth. That is for sure.
Cool. And then closing out with the Jets, I'll make my prediction. So I'm going to say 7 wins. Like what they're doing, I think they're on the right track. And that division outside of the Patriots is pretty bad, especially with Miami. It seems like almost in full tank mode. Mm-hmm. Buffalo, I like Josh Allen. I like him from fantasy perspective even more, but I don't love exactly what they're doing up there, especially there are 3 running backs almost at up to 100 years old with Gore, Ivory, and McCoy, which is insane. That's wild.
Yeah.
I'll kick it over to you, Harry. What's your thought?
My prediction is 10.
Whoa, this guy's crazy.
Whoa.
That honestly, no, but here's
you
why.
Went from World Series to 10 wins for the Jets, folks.
I am telling you, things for the Mets, Jets, and Nets are going in the right direction. Here's why it's 10. So I do think the Dolphins are going to be horrible. So I do think they should beat them twice. The Bills, as you said, are going to be horrible. So that should be 4 wins right there. Looking at the rest of the schedule, they don't have the schedule is not terrible. Definitely a couple winnable games. So say if they went just 500 the rest of those games there, that's 10 wins right there. We're playing, I think it's the NFC East this year. I do think the Giants are going to be really bad. I do think the Redskins are going to be really bad. And I'm not a Dak Prescott believer either. So I think the Cowboys are winnable there. So just breaking down the numbers like that, if I had to put my money on it, I would say 10.
When you break it down like that, I guess the divisional matchup is pretty positive.
Yeah, 10's probably a little bit more than I would go with. So I'm actually I'm staring at their schedule right now. So give me 1 second. So I'm gonna write this down as I do it. So I figure, and I haven't seen I just see who they're playing. They got 2 against Buffalo. I'd say that's probably a split. I think Buffalo's better than you think. So there's a win. I think the question for the Dolphins is going to be which Fitzmagic do you get? Are you going to get the one?
Magic.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's either he's going to torch you for 450 or he's going to throw 6 picks. I'll probably give you 2 wins there, so now you're up to 3. I think you lose both of the Patriots. I just don't see that split happening. They kind of got your number, the kryptonite. You've got Cincinnati Bengals. They were 6-10 last year. I'll give you a win there. Now you're up to 4. Then you pull the Cleveland Browns. I think that's a loss.
Is that in New York?
Cleveland Browns game is in New York, yes. Okay. So that one's exciting for you. You're home against the Browns, home against Pittsburgh. Whew, that's a tough one. Just because I'm feeling generous, 5. Then you get Baltimore.
Well, you guys, you're saying not Lamar Jackson believers.
I'm not a Lamar guy. I'm really not.
Give him that one.
No Mosley, no Terrell Suggs.
All right, so you want me to give him that one? Now you're up to 6. You're going to lose to the Cowboys. You will beat the Giants. You're going to lose to the Cowboys, bro. You'll beat the Giants. Now you're up to 7. You're losing to the Eagles. Then you've got let's see. After the Eagles, you got the Skins. Talk to me. You're gonna poop to bed at some point. So,
but
I want to think this.
You could look at it this way. I think they will beat the Cowboys, and I think they could split with the Patriots.
It's possible, but if you're gonna split, if you're gonna give me a split for the Patriots, then you're gonna lose one in here somewhere that you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
So I'll give you beating the Skin. I won't give you beating the Skins. I'll give you actually losing to the Raiders, but I'll give you the Jaguars unless Nick Foles pulls something out. So that puts you at 8. So 8-8 is definitively possible if you take care of as far as at least splitting with Bills, beating the Dolphins twice, beating the Bengals, beating somebody else that had a winning record last year. Yeah. So it's close. I'll probably give you I'll be comfortable giving you 8.
And even more important than the record really is just Darnold's development. Does he look good? Does Gase show some positive signs in year 1? I think that's kind of more important than whether you're a wild card exit or whatever you are in the playoffs.
Definitely. And I'm still optimistic, too, that before this year starts, we're still going to have some more signings. Yeah, there's still some pretty good free agents out there. Justin Houston, I think, still unsigned. He would fit pretty well there with the Jets. Trying to think who else is. They do need another offensive lineman, and yeah, let's see who they get in the draft. If they do end up with Josh Allen or Bosa, I mean, I honestly do think there will be a top 10 defense with one of those guys, Mosley, Avery Williamson, Jamal Adams. I think Leonard Williams, the defense could be nasty, and having Darnold with Le'Veon and Quincy Enunwa, big time sleeper for this year. If he stays healthy, he has a ton of talent. I think the offense, and Chris Herndon too, another guy that no one really talks about at tight end. He has all the potential in the world too. So I think the Jets honestly do have the potential. It just honestly, as you guys said, Sam Darnold's development, and yeah, let's see how the schedule breaks down. But I am feeling much better this year than any year with Todd Bowles, so that's definitely a plus.
That's a positive. Well, thanks again, Harry, for coming on. Appreciated the deep dives on all your teams, and we'll try to have you back on again maybe during the Jets season. We can see how everything's going.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for having me, guys. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you being on. As always, you can find the podcast at Evo Sports Pod on Twitter. You can find me at DrewFerraro88 on Twitter. Dave, tell me where they can find you.
DSanders877.
And Harry, where are you at? So when people want to come at you for Mets making the World Series, where should they find you?
I don't use Twitter.
Oh, he's not a Twitter guy. So
you have to save your tweets.
Save the tweets, send them to us, and we will make sure we relay them over.
Yeah.
But if you do like the pod, make sure you do like, rate, and subscribe. It does help us. Make sure you give us some feedback. If you got some topics you want us to talk about, or if you want to come on and rant about your favorite team, let us know so we can get done for you.